welcome back. This is Beyond the Sermon. We're coming to you live from Smithfield, Virginia, the ham capital of the world. And tonight we're excited to have our first official guest. This is Daniel Brown, and he has agreed to come in tonight and talk to us about some of his experiences. Kind of a local guy, done good, and I know his parents are proud of him because I'm sure they're on, right? They got to be on, right?
They said they were staying up past 8:30 to watch it.
Just past their bedtime to catch it.
Your dad said it's a little late for him, but he said he's going to sit.
So Mike and Kathy will say hi.
I asked them if I should say good night now. They said, no, we'll stay up and watch it.
That's awesome. So we are live here, and we're going to have some good conversation tonight. Daniel's nice enough to come along with us. So I'm going to put up, in fact, Tim has put up for us the phone number to call in, and we would love to have some questions for us, for Dan, for whatever you got. He's going to talk about his NFL experience with us. We're going to talk a little bit about Christian experience as an NFLer, and we're going to have a good time. So we have some fun stuff to start with. Let's go ahead, shall we, and start with some prayer and get it centered right, and we'll go with it?
Yep, let's do that.
All right, let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for this time. We thank you for the opportunity to get together with friends and talk, and we just thank you for all the things that we'll cover tonight. Bless our conversation. May it be for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, so we're going to kick it off with a little something, and I really want you guys to chime in on it because a lot of people's got to have something out there. So let's go back to something that you would be embarrassed to wear now that you wore back in the day. So I'm gonna throw up something that I wore that I would not be caught dead.
And for the record here,
Okay.
neither Dan nor I had ever seen these. Is that right? Never. I had never seen
And that's
these
weird.
things.
So
I don't know what kind of crowd you hung out with in high school, but
my
it's
crap,
weird.
that's another story. So we'll So, all right, here we go.
You just gotta show them that. The photo speaks for itself.
It does speak for itself, so let's
You gotta pull that up.
hold on. All right.
It's $225 for these things.
Hold on. Okay.
You gonna pull this up?
Well, I just got a text that we might not have been.
We weren't on.
We're on, but nobody heard us.
Are we muted?
No, we were muted, and yep, no sound. Well, can I get a confirmation now? Can you guys hear me? Because it looks like y'all should be able to, and I do apologize. Like I said, we're still ironing out all this stuff.
First time?
50-50 here.
Yeah.
40, 60.
See, for all of you who are off screen, Tim was talking a big game about how we were going
You lost the 50-50.
I did.
and I got a witness and everything right here, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's back up.
Are we
here.
live now?
We are live.
All right, so they didn't hear prayer. They heard nothing. And
They
so
heard nothing.
they heard nothing. It
We had
is
a good kickoff.
8:15.
man.
All right, so here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to circle up and we're going to cover this. So what we decided we were going to do is, even to kick off, is we're going to talk about craziest fashions. And there's three of us here tonight. And since nobody heard it, Daniel Brown is with us tonight. He's our first official guest. He is local guy, Isle of Wight Academy, which is, for those of you who don't know, school right around the corner. Got all the way to the NFL. He's going to talk to us a little bit tonight about his Christian NFL experience and some of the fun stuff he had. So we want you guys to text in, call in. All of that is open and ready to roll. Any questions you have for him, I'm sure you've got good ones. Want you to go ahead. And we were teasing earlier, saying that his mom and dad decided they'd stay up late to watch this tonight. Keep up.
Past 8:30.
Past 8:30, yeah. So we're going to make night owls out of them. So are we ready to go? Did you confirmation we're good now?
We're good now.
All right. So Tim is going to lead off here talking about his shady past and his atrocious.
Not like shady past. So, but
Anybody who wears pants like that's got to be a shady
all
past.
right, so let's go back.
Questionable past. There you go.
Because y'all didn't hear a word, but yeah, these were.
I don't know. The picture kind of speaks for itself. They probably didn't have to hear us.
These were my pants. These were Jinkos, and like I said, this was the skater crowd attire, and this is what we wore.
I'm not sure I could take you seriously at this moment.
Well, really, you did? Come on, I can't believe you wore silk shirts all the time.
That's true. We're going to get to mine in a minute, but we're dwelling on yours right this minute because this is crazy. So these things look like a big tube, and Dan pointed out that so they've got all these little pictures right up here on the screen now. They got all these little pictures they can see.
Yeah,
We think. All right, so we've got Dan pointed out that they're selling for $225 these things. Now look, I haven't been in the store to buy pants in a while, but $225 seems a little high to me.
Yeah.
For especially something that looks like that.
That is true. So I also just real quick, I want to hear if anybody has any embarrassing fashion items that they wore back in the day. Just hey, let us know. But yeah, that was
yours. Now I will. Oh, this is good too. This was his haircut.
this was my middle school haircut. Who did the bowl cut? Come on, the bowl cut. You never did.
never.
Well, you don't even. Did you even have hair in middle school?
Yeah, I did.
That's
back then.
a Timmy
That's a
hair.
Timmy.
That is a
That's a Timmy haircut.
Okay, all right. He took a joke. Okay, so let's back that up. Now we got to explain.
Oh, we gotta
that.
explain that joke.
So,
All right.
so we were talking about. So we asked Daniel, does he like being called Dan or Daniel? And of course, he says everybody calls him Dan. But mostly his parents or his dad calls him Daniel. And I told the story about how my parents all call me Timmy. So I agree. That is a Timmy looking haircut. So.
It's 100% Timmy hair.
I got it now. I see it.
I see it now.
All right, so I'll fess up. I didn't have a haircut that looked that weird. But in my day, so we're talking 90s in college, undergrad. So I'm 47. I'm the oldest guy here of the three right now. And so we had in the 90s, what was the cool thing was like the silk shirts. And then if you were really cool, you had the vest that went over it. So think like what, early Friends. I mean, aren't they kind of early 90s? So yeah, all of that style, that was all in. Now, I can't claim, I don't think that it looked like those pants. I think you might willingly word your Tim on that.
I'm gonna agree with you on that. And come on, Daniel, or Dan, Sanity is Daniel. So
You can call me whatever you want.
Whatever.
So you did no question. All right, there's nothing that you would have. So high school, you still wear that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was never trying to draw too much attention to myself anyway. So I mean, I grew up in the 90s and 2000s. I don't think anything was that
Too crazy?
Was that crazy?
But you did confess to being a sweatpants guy.
Yeah, I am big.
Sweatpants, tell me.
And that could be questionable based on who you ask.
All right, so there's our icebreaker. Anybody else give you some fodder, Timmy?
Nobody, but we were echoing, and I'm still working that out. That echo should be gone now, so let me know if it's not. Geez, if it ain't one thing, it's another. But no, does anybody have any questionable fashion decisions?
I know that the girls in my high school, it was the age when you had the poof, the heavily hairsprayed poof on the front.
All right, that was your age.
Yes,
'cause
yeah,
that was gone by the
I'm
time
about
we were
5-6 years older than you are, so that was like,
How-
I'm 47, so
You're
you're
old.
41, right?
You're
So
old.
yeah, so I got about 6 years on you, and all the girls would heavily hairspray this like bun that they'd put on front of their heads, and that was the cool thing.
And Jen's my age. I wonder if she ever had.
I don't
any
know if she-
questionable.
see if she
hadn't
sent
said
something up.
anything, So
All right, so here we go. Well, we'll keep referring back to that because those pictures, those pants are just too good not to. But we call this Beyond the Sermon because we want to dig in for a few minutes beyond the sermon. And this evening, or we could talking about Hebrews chapter 12. It's 25 through 29. So here's the deal, guys. I've already preached twice today, and then Tim and I have been working on this for a couple hours, and I don't really want to give you another sermon, all right? And you don't really want to hear me give you another sermon. So what we like to do is I'm going to talk for a couple minutes about this, and then I tell you, since we are blessed to have a guest, if there's no questions or whatever, then we're going to move right into that. So if you got something, that'd be great. If you don't, we'll cut it off.
So you want to start out with this video?
What do you think? Start with that the Texas video.
Yeah.
What do you think? You want to try that? All right,
Get
we
your
can start
blood
it.
pressure up.
Yeah, well,
All right.
it'll work. All
Okay.
right, let's do it.
Let's do
Full
it.
steam ahead. Oh well, we got to tell them what this is.
All right. Well, mention that.
So, all right. So today during my sermon, we've been having an ongoing conversation. We studied through Hebrews that I am the firm believer that God is not God does not care about your happiness. He cares about your joy. He cares about your character development. He cares about what kind of person you're becoming. So we've been talking about the last few weeks. And so last week, actually, Tim showed me this video of Joel Osteen at his church. He's the mega church pastor that a lot of people know. Down in, I think it's Dallas. I think he's down in Dallas. Maybe it's Houston. I bet it's Houston. And so he had, I think it's his wife on, and he was talking about this happiness and all that deal. And so we'll just run the tape, and then we'll talk about it for a minute. We'll go from there. You got it, Tim?
I did.
All right.
All right.
Coming to you from Houston.
That is cringy.
Whatever makes you happy.
Right, that makes you happy. Yeah, my favorite phrase. We got that echo going on as well.
It keeps happening. But
So
I'm gonna stay on it.
there's just so much wrong with that 15-second clip that I don't even really know where to begin with that. All right, so what jumps out at you, Dan?
Probably raises the question that I had today.
Okay, what you got?
And the sermon that I didn't get to because people kept jumping in front of me and I didn't really know how to word it. So obviously from the sermon we know that he's not all he's not concerned about is our happiness, right?
Right.
And he's more concerned about our joy, but he knows when certain situations come up how we're going to either be joyful about it or not.
Right.
So I guess my question is he waiting for us to make the choice to be joyful or not, even though he knows what choice we're going to make?
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. And there's a lot of unpacking there because I'm the firm contention that it's not about your happiness because happiness is, we've been saying in Sunday morning sermons, is completely circumstantial and just how you're feeling at the moment. And so, I gave the example this morning, like when I'm happy when I have my Dr. Pepper. I'm not happy when I don't. So, the question that you bring up, Dan, is like, okay, so if God knows everything, then why do we have to go through it, right? Why do we have to go through it? Why do we have to go to prove to ourselves that we will live in joy? And so we all were talking about situations in our life where we had prayed for God to give us guidance and give us direction on something in our life. And we okay, Tim?
No, they apparently couldn't hear the clip. I'm telling you, man, it's just so frustrating me right now. And
All right, well.
I don't know why.
All right, so the clip didn't work. Basically, it's just Joel Osteen and somebody he had on stage talking about how it's just about what makes you happy, and we worship God because it makes us happy, and that makes him happy. So anyway, it doesn't matter. Point being that we have to go through life. God knows what choices we're going to make. The problem is that for us, from our perspective, we don't know what decisions we're going to make. And so we were talking again, the three of us, about times where we'd gone to God with a question. In fact, Dan, you were sharing a story. We'd gone to God. We'd ask, hey, what do you want me to do in this situation? I need a sign. I need something. Just show me what it is. And all the while, we really want God to say yes, or we really want God to do what we're really wanting him to do. And we just need a sign that that's what's going to happen. And then God gives us the sign, gives us the answer. And it's like, well, thanks. but it's not what I wanted, right?
Right.
I mean, thanks for answering me, but I really wanted yes. So, you're a sovereign God, isn't that? Can't you pull that off?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Well, it's like I told you.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, if you're brave enough to go and ask for it in
Yeah.
prayer, then you better be willing to accept the answer, whether it's good or bad.
Yep.
But you're always hoping.
Yep.
I think everybody goes into the mindset of praying about it, hoping that they're going to get the answer that they want.
Please, please.
Right. And when you don't, I think that's when you have the choice to be joyful that you got your answer.
Yeah.
Or upset that you didn't get the answer that you wanted.
Right. And quite honestly, I can think of times in my life I didn't get the answer I wanted. I acted like a little spoiled brat.
Right.
I mean, full confession here, right? I mean, there have been times when I was asking the Lord, you just do whatever, your will is, and then, but could it be yes?
Yeah.
And then it ends up not. And
Right.
it's like, so my happiness takes a dent or takes a beating. But I think you bring up a good point, Dan, of the question in that moment is, are we willing to be joyful when the answer was no? And I heard a joke one time I've shared with the congregation. It's God answers in 4 different ways. He answers yes, no, wait, or you got to be kidding me. And so, are we willing to be joyful and live with God's answer, even when it's not really the one we want, especially when it makes it crystal clear. It's even sometimes more frustrating when it's crystal clear.
Yeah. I think that's when it hurts most.
Yes. It's brutal.
When it's almost immediate.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Lord, would you give me this answer?
Yeah.
Boom, right across the face, right?
Yeah. If it's not going to be the answer I wanted, maybe we could have waited a few days.
Give me a little time to process it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we make light because we're just thinking about experiences in our past, but there are times when it's really painful. I mean, I think it's only fair to acknowledge that sometimes it just really stinks, and the no is hard. And I think about my 5-year-old. We say no about candy or cookies or whatever, right? You break his little heart, right? But once you're 30s, 40s, you're praying about things that have a little bit more significance than chocolate, and to have to trust God and live in the joy He promises, even when my happiness isn't where I want it to be. So to come full circle, the clip that we tried to show you was just about how the speaker was talking about how God just wants us happy, and that's just not it. That's so, I think, empty ultimately, because God is ultimately interested in developing our character and His children becoming the people He's called them to be. And so we've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks on Sunday mornings. But it's hard. And I think you hit on the right point, Dan. I mean, it's hard to go through life trusting when you don't know the final answer and you don't really know what God's going to do or how He's going to use those situations or that no answer to prepare you for the really great thing He's got for you. And I'll just give you a really quick example in my own life. We were living a little ways away from my job in Richmond, and we found this house that was an upgrade. Caden had just come along. It was a great deal, great opportunity, and great price. And we wanted this house. It was still going to be a far ways away from where I was working, but we really wanted it. And so we prayed about it, all the time wanting it to be yes, right? And God said no. Just slam that door shut. And we were all disappointed. We were not happy and worked up about it. And then about, 6 months, maybe 8 months later, God gave us this perfect house, right around the corner from where I was working. And my wife was all giddy about it because a in-ground pool in the back and this eating area outside and this awesome sunroom.
All the important stuff.
Yeah, well, all right, all the stuff that I had to clean. But we loved it. It was a great little house. In fact, we always have loved it. In fact, it's probably my favorite house we've ever lived in. But if He'd said yes to the one we thought we wanted, then we wouldn't have got the one we really wanted. It's easy to say that in hindsight, right? It's easy when you're looking back on it. But it really stinks sometimes when you're in the middle of it and God said no, but you don't know what the ultimate outcome is. You don't know what the answer is.
So, got a question.
Yeah, man.
Is it okay to thank God for the unanswered prayers?
Unanswered prayers? Sure, I think so.
Okay.
Because the wait.
In hindsight, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think it is true that God's answer is wait. And we've gone through that when, we were waiting for our spouses, or we were waiting for the job. We weren't sure where God was leading us. I mean, look, I've been very honest about the fact that being a pastor was the last thing I wanted to do. The last thing. I went to seminary to be a professor. I wanted to be leading a church. And so through this winding process of lots of no's and lots of waits, God put me in this
position that I ultimately am in. And now it's like, well, I can't imagine really doing anything else because I love this job, and it's even on bad days, it's still the greatest job I could have, right? So I think the non-answer or the wait answer, yeah, I mean, there's a thanks in that. I mean, at least God's listening, right? I mean, thank God.
Yeah, and Garth Brooks was right.
And which country song is that you're referring to?
Unanswered prayers.
Unanswered prayers. There
It
you go.
is.
All right, that's right. 'Cause
Some
that's-
people will know.
Yes.
I
Some
just-
people know.
Maybe it's tougher for. I mean, just now in today's society, it's such a now society.
That's
right?
a good point.
That is
I
a
want
good
it
point.
now. Like, I mean, even
That is a good point.
even when my if my Wi-Fi doesn't open the page in 0.2 seconds,
That's
like I'm like,
true.
why is
everything.
I think
is,
maybe
yeah.
it just is more so my generation, but I think the world as it is now is just now. So if you don't get an answer now,
Right.
I don't think anybody enjoys waiting.
We're not conditioned to wait for anything anymore.
Right.
Not anymore.
Yeah, that's a
No.
good point.
That is a good point
Like,
because
I would love for my prayer to be answered what I want
Right.
away,
Yeah.
which almost never happens. But then, but I guess it's nice to get the answer you didn't want right away either, so you're not wasting
Sure.
any more time. But I think waiting is just it's a tough for anybody. And
Yeah, and I think the
society.
key, I think it's great. I think there's a great Michael W. Smith song I love, and one of the lines is that God is working in the waiting. And I'm lousy at waiting. I mean, before iPhones and everything, I was lousy at waiting. And I think you had a great point there because we aren't conditioned, number one, but also we have to remember that while we're waiting for that thing we're praying about, God is still doing the work. I can think of like I was open to being a senior pastor, and I had gotten a whole bunch of no's, like applied to various places, and then the one yes I got was, the guy had to be at the point where he was ready to retire, and that was when they needed to be looking, and that's where God wanted me to be. But I had to wait while God was working in that guy's life to retire before I could step into his role. So, but I didn't know that sitting there at the time, just waiting for him to show me what he was doing, and I was getting a lot of wait, and I wasn't happy about it. See, just further proof that God's not interested in my happiness.
right, yeah,
He's just not. But he is interested in who we are. And,
Right.
and because he loves us, he is totally in to who we're becoming and the joy he wants us to live in. But I think that's a great point. Yeah, because we're
Hold
the
up, I'm
microwave McDonald's generations, right?
That is a good point.
Yes. What you working on?
Doing some. Someone has a good point here.
Okay, great.
So
And it is Dr. Pepper tonight. Tim was nice enough to get me some. Dan's being a good athlete here. He's just drinking his water.
I enjoy a good diet, Dr. Pepper.
Diet Dr. Pepper?
Yeah. But I'm not as active as I used to be, so I can't.
Not burning the carbs quite like
Yeah.
you used to. Yeah.
there we go.
Me either.
There we go.
All right, what you got?
I was told that I needed to swap you guys because
Swap us?
Yes.
Oh, because we're looking backwards at each other. Yeah, that's
that
good.
does look better. So thank you for.
Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. That was a good idea.
It was my wife.
I've
so
been,
Oh.
I've been
Yeah.
looking away the whole time.
Yeah, right.
it's like y'all were looking at each
going on?
other. That is a good point. So
Good
you
job,
guys are
Mallory.
swapped.
Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you. Hiccups as usual.
Yeah, that's
So,
all good, bro. It's all good.
So you Oh, never mind. Go
You
ahead.
lost it?
Yeah, I lost it.
All right. So, yeah, I think I'll just circle around for this last point here that, the clip we tried to show is just wrong on every level because we don't worship anything but God correctly. I mean, our goal for worship should be worship God. And so, guys, pull up this clip or something on your own. It's all over the place.
I sent a link in the
Good. Yeah.
in the chat.
I mean, you should check this out. It's just wrong on so many levels.
Here's probably what bothers me. What do you think? 30,000 people sitting
40,000,
40,000
yeah.
people that are sitting in there.
It's the
and
church
listening.
Oprah Winfrey goes to when she decides to
Yeah.
go to church.
So that 40,000 people just sat there and listened to that nonsense. Either they agreed with it
Sure.
or they didn't.
Right.
We'll never know. But I just think that's just so many people that they have access to, and
It's a big podium, man.
it is.
Big podium.
And would you go so far to say there's the devil at work there?
Nah, I wouldn't go that far because I can't really discern that. But what I would be very willing to say, I mean, Joel Osteen has a little bit bigger pulpit and reach than I do. I know that's going to shock both of you, but I would still be willing to say that, I wouldn't go so far to say like it's, that far, Tim, but I would say it's willingly making people or willingly letting people think about themselves. And that is ultimately sinful because it ultimately leads to pride.
Well, yeah, and it goes back to society has just that's all they do nowadays is just think about themselves.
Right.
And
It's a narcissistic
it is.
experience.
It's extremely narcissistic
Right.
nowadays, and when you've got that platform and you're encouraging it,
Right.
I just think it's a bad idea.
Sure. Well, it's part and parcel of what we were just saying too about the immediate. I want it right now. I want to be happy. I want that Rolex watch right this minute. So, I wouldn't go too far with my critique because I'm human too, and I have my own problems, my own sins to work through. But I would say that it's at best it is letting people think too highly of themselves and letting them think that it's all about them. And the scripture just screams out that it's not about you. It's just not. All right, so let's wrap it up. You ready for this, brother?
I am.
All right, bring
Let's
it
get
on.
it.
All right, so Dan Brown, as we said earlier, is with us, and he is our first official guest. We're so excited to have him. And one of the reasons we wanted to pull him out here is because, first of all, Tim and I love football. But we're aware, painfully aware, actually, that not all of you are huge football fans.
Yeah.
And we'll make allowances for that tonight. So we'd asked Dan to come on and talk to us about some of his Christian experiences in the NFL. And I'm not going to do all the talking for you here, brother, but local guy, Isle of Wight Academy, right up the road, pretty small school
Yeah.
as far as schools go,
Pre-K through 12,
Yeah.
probably 500 kids.
right? You graduated class of how many?
43.
There you go. So not a huge school, good school, but not a huge school. And so then walk us through how you got to sitting here tonight. So what was your trajectory?
Your journey.
God to walk you through it.
A long,
Football,
long
winding
path,
road.
long winding path. Yeah, nobody from my school had ever played a Division I sport, and I knew that I had the capability to play a Division I sport. So I wasn't, no disrespect to
No, yeah.
D2, D3
Right.
schools. I just didn't want to waste my time.
Sure.
So me and my dad ended up putting together our own highlight film way past the whole recruiting process. Like
Wow.
this is March and
Wow.
kids are already signed
Yeah.
April, March. So
Right.
we're way behind. Nobody's ever, told us how to do it. Nobody helped us. So we sent a film to every Division I school. And we heard back from Richmond and JMU. I think it was like 8 schools we sent. We heard back from 2. Took a visit to Richmond, and it felt too much like this small private school. I mean, there's 3,000 kids. It's a private college.
Yep.
Wasn't really feeling it. And we took a visit to JMU, and it's a public school. It's growing.
Mhm.
17,000 kids, built a new stadium,
Yeah.
Beautiful campus. So ultimately I decided to walk on there.
And they've done quite a few things in the last few years for the football program too.
Yeah, done really well. Since I've left, they've done really well. So
No correlation, of course.
No.
Right.
End up working my way to a full scholarship my 3rd year. And then from there, graduated, got a degree, tried to enter the draft, and I did, and just sat around. The draft just ended, and I remember like eight years ago, I had some Facebook memories pop up, and everybody's wondering where I'm gonna go, and I'm thinking I'm gonna get a phone call, and it's like I didn't even get a phone call. It's just sat around, They have what they call the 8th round.
Sure.
The 7 rounds actually officially, and then the 8th rounds where all the undrafted signees get.
And they have the Mr. Irrelevant now,
Right.
which means you still got drafted, but you're
You're
the
the
last
last
pick,
pick, yeah.
right? Yeah. So for
So
those
the
of you who
8th
don't know
round
this-
is all these undrafted kids who get signed immediately, and then I'm what you consider in the 9th round. So
I've never heard that before.
I got invited to a tryout, and did well at the tryout and carved my way into a spot. And
That's awesome.
7 years later,
Yep. Now, who's your first team?
Ravens.
Ravens. Okay, so a little bit more here locally.
Yep.
And then you played for, I think you were telling us, the Bears as well,
Bears.
and then with the Jets.
Well, yeah. And then in my last season, I was at Kansas City for 18
Yeah.
days. So
A few days. In
I
and out.
traded there, and
Right.
everybody made it was a huge deal because they, almost some of the most unheard of trades in the NFL are player for player swaps. And I had people, I had old coaches who were reaching out to me and be like, you don't know how big of a deal this is. Like player for player swaps don't happen. And I'm like, I don't think they had any choice. So
Okay.
I was there for 18 days and they shipped me back to New York.
There you
so.
go. Back to the Jets. All right.
But it all happened for a reason, right?
Absolutely. Always does. Always does. And I will tell you a little, I was telling my son last night, what I may not have ever told you is that I went to high school with the GM of the Jets.
Joe Douglas?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
He was in my grade at my high school
Nice.
in Mechanicsville, Virginia. In the 8th grade, I met Joe for the first time, and Joe has always been a huge guy.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, 8th grade, he was like,
Yeah.
he was
He's a good. I really liked him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Because
And,
I think he spent time in Baltimore.
Yep.
Which is, I don't ever remember him in Baltimore, but I know that he has a connection there. So when I got to New York, I remember that connection being pretty strong because he pretty much already knew who I was when I got to New York. So
awesome. Yeah. So, there's my claim to fame, right? Yeah.
That's funny.
I went to
didn't know
school
that.
with Joe. He played on my high school football team.
Nice.
I was sitting in the stands, go, Joe.
That's good.
He was a huge guy. Huge
All
guy.
right, so we now know.
Tim's
the,
tired of this conversation. He's
No,
ready to move
no,
on.
no, I'm going to interject. I mean, you got to keep it flowing. But you mentioned your team. So, what was your favorite team and why that you got to play with?
I enjoyed my time the most probably in Chicago. It's a great sports town. Midwesterners are just nice people.
Yeah, they really are.
Whether you're winning or losing, they're your biggest fans. They treated my family great. We didn't win a whole lot until we had a good year my last year, but that's
Who-
probably
Who was the quarterback on it during that time?
when I got there was Jay Cutler.
Okay.
We drafted Mitch Trubisky
Mm-hmm.
the second year,
Yep.
and then I played with him my third year there too. But that's probably the most I played in my career as well. So I had the most fun there playing,
Sure.
actually being on the field, and then a great city to play in.
All right, so I got a few questions. They're going to pop up right here. So
Awesome.
just
I did. I actually,
So the question is, they can see it, right?
yeah, they should,
Okay.
you should be able to
Yeah.
see. Yes.
yeah. I played for Kansas City I got traded to Kansas City and played for them for 3 weeks, and I got to meet all those guys, super cool guys, and I actually played pickleball with Patrick Mahomes. So
Did you win or he win?
he's actually really good. Yeah, he's really good at a
He's
lot
really
of
good
things.
at pickleball.
Yeah.
All right, I've got one
He
more.
takes it very seriously.
Does he really?
Yeah.
That's his thing away from the football
Yeah,
field?
yeah.
A lot of us know this, but I just
Put
throw it out there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So Vicky Odom asked what position did you play?
I played wide receiver in college, and in my first year with the Ravens, I played wide receiver, and then last 6 years I played tight end.
I don't think I ever knew that you played wide receiver.
Yep,
That's
You
where
were a big wide receiver then.
I was
That's where that
Okay.
4.5 came in.
6'5", 220.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Okay, I can see why they wanted you at tight
Yeah.
end. Okay.
Well, what was the competition level for you, a wide receiver at JMU? I mean, were you kind of heads over the guys you're playing against? I mean, because it's Division One, but
Yeah, I was just bigger,
yeah,
like bigger, more physical than I mean. I wasn't overly athletic, but I was athletic enough. I was just bigger than most people at that level. So it was, I was a big physical receiver, jump ball, go across the
Sure,
middle type of
sure.
thing. I wasn't going to burn anybody,
Right.
by
but no one wanted to hit you, right?
right. But yeah, and I was a good blocker as
Uh-huh.
a receiver because
Yeah.
the defensive backs were much smaller. So
Sure. Push them
You
around.
played tight end in JMU, right?
no,
Oh, you were wide
I
receiver.
I played wide out at JMU, and I played wide out my first year in Baltimore. And then after my first year in Baltimore, they told me that they would only re-sign me if I moved to tight end. And
Okay.
obviously, I had no choice. It
Sure,
was,
yeah.
How did you feel about that, though?
I was a little butthurt. My ego was definitely
Yeah.
in her. I thought I was going to be the next Jordy Nelson.
Sure.
You know,
Because he's tall.
white guy.
Yeah.
Not going to run past anybody, but reliable receiver.
Good possession receiver and all
Yeah,
that, right?
that's
yeah.
who I thought I was
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
be.
yeah.
And then when they called me into the office and said that they're going to move me to tight end, my ego was
Mhm,
definitely hurt. But
mhm.
I had to put that aside really quickly because if I didn't, nobody else was
that's
going to
right.
pick me up.
That's right.
All right, so we got another question, and this is a good one. It's almost like they were in our conversation.
You know this is my kid. All right, so question is the
Most well-known quarterback I played with. I I mean, I played with Patrick Mahomes, so but I would probably say Joe Flacco was probably the most.
Is he a classy guy? Because
he
he
is.
always seemed he
He's
came off
a
as-
very low key. Like I enjoyed just spending time with him. He's just a guy.
I think
which-
I even heard he's a good family man.
Yeah,
too,
he's got
kids
he's
and
got 4 kids.
yeah,
he
so-
brings them around the facility, and
Cool.
he's got problems just like everybody else.
right.
He wants to stay at the building, so he doesn't have to go home and calls his little kids terrorists because they're just running around and breaking stuff. And I'll never forget. I was in Baltimore, and we were getting on the bus on Saturday. And they were at home games. They had daycare at the guys could bring their kids for daycare on Saturday before a game or before we went to the hotels. And I remember leaving the facility, and it's just like this big glass playroom area. And I look over to my left and Joe's got his 3 boys in there, and they're just banging on the windows, licking stuff. And it's like, Joe, are those your kids? He's like, yeah, it's just, they're out of control.
War.
He was
zone.
the most down earth guy,
awesome.
for being at one point the most highly paid
Yeah.
quarterback in the league and Super Bowl MVP. He had no problem talking to the young undrafted kid who had no idea what he was doing.
That's
So,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I got another question that was actually texted to me by David Knight, right?
Yep.
Okay, so David asked, how bad was the field at FedEx Field when you injured your knee at college? I've heard some bad news about FedEx Field.
I don't think that the field had anything to do with my knee injury. That was a lot of force that probably wasn't going to stop that from happening. But I do know that was probably, when warming up, it's probably the worst.
What'd
the
you do?
worst field.
I
It's
don't know you
just-
had a knee injury. What happened?
I was in college, and I just got rolled up on and ended up tearing my ACL and MCL and both meniscus and all that.
What was your
Stepped on a landmine.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
But
Full job, right?
yeah, it was. But yeah, it's not a very good field. It's one of the worst I've ever played on. But I don't think it contributed. I don't think there was anything that's going to stop that knee injury.
So you blew up that man. That is
Tore up everything.
Yeah.
because I've torn an ACL too. So yeah, it's a little rough.
Well, obviously, I mean, we had you on here because you're just a cool guy to talk to, but also we wanted to talk about some of your Christian experience in the NFL. Now, I gotta say, I can't make any judgment calls sitting where I am here, but I was watching the draft the other night, the first round with my son, and we noticed that certainly at least the first couple of guys, gave thanks to God,
Yep.
and I think that was great. And I don't know them at all, obviously, so I'm not saying anything negative towards them, but I wondered, like, what was your experience? We get a lot of actors and actresses that they get the Emmys or they get the whatever, and they say, well, I want to give God all the credit or whatever. And so I'm hearing these kids and I'm thinking, well, is that something they feel conditioned to say? Or do you feel like that's an evidence, of some type, of real faith that's going to be with them as they go through these NFL experiences? I mean, what was your experience?
And sometimes when I see that too, I'm like, is it something that you're saying because you're
Right.
supposed to say it,
Exactly. Yeah.
or do they actually, have the faith to say it? And the best answer I can give for this question is that I personally just think that football players are just normal people, right?
Okay.
And
Good point.
nobody else sees that. Like,
Yeah.
obviously they are celebrities and they make a lot of money and they're in the spotlight all the time. But I don't see them that way because I'm around them in the locker room and they're normal people with normal problems. They got to go home and have family problems, marital problems, whatever problems that they have. Like, they're just normal people with normal jobs who everybody's different. Not everybody is what they appear to be.
You don't like everybody you work with.
Right.
Yeah.
And not everybody's the same. So
Sure.
I kind of see it as the same as, any life outside the NFL. It's a struggle to be a Christian in the real world too. It's not
absolutely.
you know,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well as it is to be in the NFL. Not to say, but there's groups in the NFL just like there is outside. I mean, there's guys who are very open about their faith. There's guys who are very private about it. There's guys who are always encouraging it. We have a team chaplain on every team where we do chapel or mass every Saturday before a game at the hotel.
Oh, that's cool.
And I assume it's volunteer, right?
Right, it's
Yeah, okay.
voluntary. We have Bible studies. We usually have like a player Bible study some point during the week before meetings all start. So it's very open for anybody who, wants to practice their faith. And there are plenty of guys out there. I wouldn't say it's the majority of them, but that's the same in the real world. It's not the majority of the people
Absolutely.
practice
Absolutely.
practice faith too. So
Yeah, no
it's the
question.
exact same. There's a well-known group of guys who sit down together and they fellowship together. And then they even have this conference that's put on by the NFL. It's called it's a PAO conference. They meet every year after the season in February, and they just fellowship for 3 days. I went to it in 2018, 2018, and it's just fellowship. So it's not. I just see it as the exact same as the real world. Like
Just people doing their job,
just
right?
real people with
Yeah.
real problems,
Yeah.
real. They have the same faith that anybody else has.
So did you ever feel like, I mean, certain fields you can hear about or read about, and there's actually kind of a, for lack of a better term, kind of like an anti-Christian bias, or, people feel like you're open about your faith, it's going to kind of come back and bite you. So from what you're saying, that's really not kind of the atmosphere you're working in. It's,
No,
it's just your kind of personal decision.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, if I have a teammate, he could be my locker mate or whatever, and he sees me going to chapel or Bible study, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go eat breakfast, go and have a good time at Bible study.
right.
You can encourage him, hey, maybe you should come, just sit in it, for once. And there's guys like that all the time, who are always reaching out, encouraging people, hey, just come sit in, see if you like it. If you don't, then you don't have to stay. But
So pretty vocal about it then.
right, there's a group of people, especially the people who lead the groups on each team. Like there's 3 or 4 guys on each team who kind of lead the group.
Now, what about coaches? Like, I mean, do they
So they have a-
participate in that as well?
They
or
have
is
a
it
separate coaches Bible
Really?
study thing.
Okay.
So I know the team pastor, he does he'll do a Bible study with players like on a Tuesday. He'll do it with coaches on a Wednesday. So it's out there if you
That's
want
pretty
it.
cool.
Yeah.
So, and pretty open there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really great.
All right, this is good because I know I asked you the same question, but this would be a lot of people would probably like to know this, and I'll let you take this one because it's not bad, but I know we did pretty much what you told me.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Not anymore. No.
You follow guys.
Yeah. It just the NFL has just ruined that for me. So I'm not gonna have a favorite team anymore. I still have friends that I pull for, that I'm always gonna cheer for. So I watch their games and stuff like that. I grew up a Tampa Bay fan. A very random reason, as a kid, I went through like a pirate phase when Pirates of the Caribbean were coming out, and
Cool
I
stuff,
found
yeah.
out that they had a pirate ship in their stadium.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
shot off the cannons.
Yeah. So that's
I
the
even,
team.
I
right
even
there.
had a bedspread that had a big Buccaneer
Nice.
flag on it. So I grew up a Tampa Bay fan, but
That's great.
not anymore. I don't have a favorite team anymore. I pull for my friends.
What about when it comes to other sports like baseball or basketball? Do you have any favorite sport teams there, or do you kind of just
Yeah,
not
I got teams that I pull for. Baseball,
Pirates?
no,
I didn't say
no,
that.
no, no.
It's too easy.
I stay kind of local. Orioles.
Orioles,
Okay.
okay.
We always went to Orioles games as kids.
Oh, yeah?
You a Nationals fan at all?
No,
No.
no.
Oh, this is a good question.
And then I was always an Under Armour guy, so
Okay.
I always pull for Steph Curry. So
yeah.
I'm not I enjoy watching the Golden State Warriors play, and they won tonight. So, but
speaking of Steph-
as an Under Armour guy, I always stuck with Steph Curry.
Speaking of Steph Curry, he's openly strong Christian.
I don't
Well,
know.
that's the
I
reason
believe he
he's
is.
signed with Under Armour opposed to Nike's because of the scripture he gets on his shoes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Um,
Okay.
He so Under Armour printed on the shoes. I can do all things. Dot
okay.
dot dot.
Okay.
Nike wouldn't do that on his shoe, so he ended
Wow,
up
I bet
signing.
Nike regrets that
He
one.
ended up signing with Under Armour
Wow.
So I've got a
I didn't
new,
know that.
got a
because
new
I got I had a deal with them, so for a few years, so
Yeah.
I would always buy. Whatever the points they gave me, I would buy a pair
Sure.
of Curry basketball shoes,
Sure.
and somewhere on the shoe it's always printed, like whether it's on the bottom, on the side,
That's really cool. I did not know that.
I got a little bit more found respect for Under Armour on that. That's pretty good. So I got another question. This is actually a pretty good one too. It's coming from Vicky Odom again.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, this is a pretty good one. I assume you guys probably do. Or
Yes. Yep.
Before and after?
So we do a team prayer. The players do. So we always come off. It's crazy. It's like on every team. Every team does the exact same thing. So we usually go on the field and warm up, and right before we go out, it's literally group prayer in the shower. So it's the locker rooms have big open showers, so it's enough room for everybody to stand, and it's also private. So if not everybody wants to join and they want to get ready for the game and they want to listen to their music, we're not doing a prayer in front of them and distracting everybody. So it's always group prayer in the shower, and everybody goes in the shower.
There's some jokes there.
Yeah, for sure. Afterwards,
Right.
But we always go in there and we lock arms and we say a prayer in the shower, and then typically the team as a whole says the Lord's Prayer before they go out for the.
So, I mean, do you think there's a pressure to do that for guys, or how do you think that shakes down? I mean, from my perspective,
there's no pressure for the group shower thing, because that's the players, and it's whatever you want to do. If you want to join it, you can. Okay. Maybe there's some pressure in the team one because we're all in the locker room together and we're all taking a knee and locking arms and saying it with the coaches and stuff. But you don't have. I mean, you don't have to say it if you don't want to. But I think there's a pressure to at least participate.
Yeah. So that kind of pulls back the curtain a little bit, though.
It does,
because I mean, as a I don't know that. Obviously I'm not there, so that's interesting that that's happening. Especially when these are professionals, and they're, like I said, they're making a lot of money. They're really famous people, a lot of them, and it's just interesting to hear that.
But think of this, and I've been thinking about this. So the majority, we'll use the SEC for an example.
Sure. For those who don't know, that's the Southeastern Conference. We're back to college football.
You think about it, the majority of a lot of recruits come out of the SEC, and little towns, down south, probably grew up in churches, most of them.
Yeah. And culturally, that part of the country is much more
the
Christian.
Bible Belt. Yeah, right. So that's probably another reason why you see a lot of that. And actually, that's makes me feel good to hear. I mean, I'm a big NFL guy, and I like to hear that they don't ostracize, if I'm saying that right. Ostracize,
right. Yeah, I got you.
Christians and all, and have an opportunity to worship and do what they need to do.
Yeah, and I mean, we certainly don't want to give the impression like we think that there's someone trying to beat up a Christian around every corner. I mean, that's certainly not it. But it is encouraging to hear that the guys that we're watching on TV have that access, and it's actually encouraged where it needs to be encouraged. I think that's really cool. And I have to confess, I mean, I haven't watched much NFL since I started doing this gig 20 years ago. And I teased and make the joke that my marriage could survive one sport, and college football had my heart. So pro was never going to be able to keep up. So I'm not the greatest NFL fan in the world because I'm at church doing my thing. So it's interesting to hear, like you said, kind of pull back the curtain about some of the stuff that's going on. It's really neat.
Yeah. I always struggled with Sundays.
Sure. Yeah.
This is the Lord's day of rest, right? And I'm like, well, I'm always working. Like, am I going to be
hard?
Am I going to be punished one day for not resting on the the day of rest?
That's right. Well, I think that's a good point. I think ultimately the idea of a Sabbath where we get a chance to catch our breath and kind of orient ourselves in the right direction is more important than the day.
Right. Ours just tends to be a Monday.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, everybody's probably ice bathing and stuff, right? Right. Chilling out, trying to recover.
So speaking of that, what was the most? I don't want to say this. It's kind of a two-part question. What was the most difficult stadium to play in? And that could be from the fans to, because climate, Denver comes to mind for climate, and that could be rough.
Chicago ain't great
for people, but for fans, from fans to climate to what was the most difficult stadium for you to really, you just did not like it?
Denver is definitely physically challenged.
You can notice that when you get up there.
You're just. I mean, we played up there, and it's fine walking around. And then as soon as you go out for warm ups, and we're all well conditioned athletes.
Sure, of course.
You start stretching and jogging, and like you're out of breath already, and it's like this isn't
this isn't normal.
this doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
Like
right.
So
and
how-
that's when the people are on the oxygen tanks more than normal. But from an atmosphere, I know that Baltimore, like on a night game, is a pretty rowdy place to play. My time with New York, we played there on a Thursday night, and it was when that was Lamar's Super Bowl, MVP year, so they were doing really well. It's a great atmosphere at night. It's a tough place to play. Kansas City gets really loud as a visiting team.
The Arrowhead, right?
Yeah.
What about those
it's
Philly fans? They
Yeah, I
say
was about
they're
to say
rough.
it in terms of a nasty point of view. It's a Philly fan. I mean, and I think that
I've heard that
and I
before.
think that my parents would agree because
They went there for the game.
well, they went 3 times, and they made the mistake the first time of being proud parents and wearing colors. And the second time they went, they wore neutral colors because they were just. Even to my parents, they were just nasty. And
Really?
I
I've
mean,
heard
you
that.
run out of the tunnel there, and you got like 7-year-old kids flipping you the bird, and it's just like,
They're diehards.
yeah,
huh?
they're nasty. They're just nasty.
All right, so flip the switch on that one. Then what's like other? You said Chicago, but what's like one of your favorite places to play?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really thought about it.
When you already said Chicago.
Why you think about it? I'm going to elaborate on that. Is there certain stadiums that treat you guys no, like as a whole? Do you get different accommodations at different stadiums? Okay, so it's
No,
pretty.
everything's the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were like, I only want green M and M's.
No. Yeah,
Okay, it
everything-
ain't like that.
and that's all based off. We all handle that. Our staff,
Okay.
nutritional staff, and they handle all that. Nothing's provided for you. You bring all your own stuff.
Okay.
But I don't know that any stadium is. Any visiting team is gonna heckle you. I don't know that there's any team that's pleasant to walk into their
Kind
stadium.
of the point, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah,
which
kind of
is
the point.
fun. You enjoy that type
Right,
of stuff.
Right. All right. Well, okay. So another question for you then. What is like the one thing? And I appreciate your comment about it's just guys going to work. What's like the one thing you wish that people knew about the NFL? If you had to say, like, I wish people were sitting there on the couch on Sunday, yelling at their TV.
Yeah.
I wish they knew something. As open-ended intentionally.
I wish they knew that it's a job. It's a job. It's
Mhm.
not just a. It is. It's a sport, right? It is a sport, but it is a job. It's not like we just kind of show up and on Sunday and try the best we can. It's a year-round thing.
Right.
We put in the hours. It's a typical. Wednesday or Thursday practice is, you get there at 7:30. You leave at 5 or 5:30. You're expected to go home and watch more film on your
Right.
iPad.
Right.
And then that stuff is tracked. They track how much time you spend on your iPad.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you're not going home and
Doing your homework, right?
right
Yeah.
after you've already spent a full day, I guess people don't realize how. It is a real job and how much time that we put in, but also how skilled those players are. And not playing last year, I got to watch more games, and I got to maybe see how other people watch games. And my biggest pet peeve is, and everybody does it. I did it last year too, watching guys play, and I wasn't playing. And I was like, that. Why is he doing that? But I feel like I have the authority to do it because I have played.
Yeah.
You have the chops to at least back it up,
There's
right?
plenty of people who will sit there and just absolutely criticize you for something that they wouldn't even, can't even come close to doing. Right? Like there's a guy on Twitter who's telling you how bad you are, or how awful you are, and the guy's probably never even played football before.
Yeah, right.
That I see all the time. 'Cause
So
I'm-
it's like,
yeah.
to me, I don't think people realize how much work is actually put in because it's a sport, so it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. It's entertainment for them, so it's entertainment for you, essentially. kinda,
Right.
Well, it's interesting because I'm not trying to make it about me, but I'm going to for a second, all right? It's one of the jokes about being a pastor is that we only work one day a week.
Right.
So I can kind of relate to what
Yeah,
you're saying at a
yeah.
different level. Like, you know, the sermons, apparently I just get up there and stand
Right.
and they
yeah,
just
you
kind of fall
yeah,
out.
you just
Right.
go up there and wing it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I could kind of sense that, you know,
Yeah.
like you didn't work on that route. You didn't work on your timing with your quarterback on that. It just
Right.
fell into place from
Right.
playing in the sandlot kind of
Yeah.
idea. I understand what you're saying on that one. That makes sense.
Do you think you'll ever get back involved with not even NFL but any type of football at all? I mean, is that something you
Yeah,
want
that's
to do?
something I've realized just within the last couple of weeks or 3 weeks or so is that I didn't think that I wanted to be, but now that I'm not involved and haven't been involved, it's like I actually do want to be involved,
Yeah.
just not with
Yeah.
football itself. I don't really have a coaching personality. I don't really have the patience, nor do I want to climb that ladder. I just know it's
Yeah.
a grueling schedule, and
Yeah.
I really don't want to do that. I want to be involved in a way where I can still be involved with the team. And so as of recently, I've been working on something with a former team about doing like an internship during training camp, more of like on a scouting side, player operations. They kind of oversee all the behind the scenes stuff to make sure everything's a smooth transition. So players and coaches, all they have to worry about is playing. And that's a way for me to be involved without being involved with the X's and O's.
Right.
Scouting is something I'm kind of interested in.
Cool.
So they're going to let me kind of play around with different groups and see what I like and I don't like. But I guess I've never had like a job.
Yeah.
Like
You have. You just
right.
haven't had
I
a
just
desk job.
I just told it myself. So
Right.
never had like a
desk job.
job outside of football.
Right, sure.
So I mean, I never did an internship in college. I played football in college, and I spent the summers training and taking classes or whatever. But I never did an internship. Luckily enough, the NFL for 7 years, and then so I've never done anything outside of football. So the past few months, gives me anxiety, makes me nervous about trying something that I've never done before.
Sure.
Whereas with like football, it's all I've done for my whole life. I know everything about it.
Yep.
Maybe not the little details behind the scenes, but I know everything that goes into what makes a good football organization or something like that. So it makes me less anxious knowing that there's a career path that way. It's not relearning everything. Not to say that I can't.
No, I
I'm
understand.
sure that I
Right.
could learn anything that I put my mind to,
Right,
but
sure.
this way I don't know, it just makes it for an easy transition. So I'm kind of excited about it.
I think it's great.
That's good. I mean, I hope that all works out for you because, I mean, it.
Right.
Even if you got into the scouting part of the job, I mean, you know what you're looking for,
Right.
and whatnot. So is there anything you got anything else you wanna say? You got anything else on
Give us
your
words
mind?
of wisdom.
No.
What do we need?
Nah,
Well, let me
I'm not a
put
wise
it-
man.
Let me put it to the guest out there. Is there anybody else that has anything, any questions, any comments? We'd love to hear.
I got one. How do I get a chaplain gig? That's what I want. I told your dad the other day, I said, see, here's the deal, right? Since I only want to work one day a week anyway, I'll just
Yeah.
fly into town.
Yeah.
And are they volunteer chaplains? Or do they get paid for being a chaplain?
I think it's paid.
All right, well, see, there you go.
I know. I know that the one in the Jets did not. The one in Baltimore, he had an office.
Yeah.
He had an office in the facility, so he had to be on
Okay.
payroll if he's
Right,
if
that's
he's
a good point.
sitting
Good
in
point. See, that's what you got to do, brother. When you get
Yeah.
yourself settled, you
Yeah.
figure out,
Okay.
you just put my name
I
out there.
think what's limiting you now is you're not close to a team.
Well,
So
I can
think
make that happen.
Yeah, you can. yeah. So
See, I mean, with what they pay at the NFL, I could just jet back and forth. I'm
Right,
sure.
right,
I'm sure. In fact, I was
yeah.
teasing with your dad.
yeah,
just
it
like,
might even be
Yeah.
expenses paid for it.
there you go. I'll just fly into town and
Yeah.
I'll just spit out my sermon on Sunday morning,
Yeah.
and then I'll just fly.
Which is
out to
what
the
you
next
do
game.
here anyway.
That's
You
right.
just
That's all I
spit
do
it-
anyway.
Show up and spit it
Show
out.
up and spit it out.
Yeah.
So
One day-
it
one day
won't
we'll-
affect my life at all.
No.
But all kidding aside, all right. So, what do you think? I mean, what are like the qualifications for like these spiritual leaders? Now, you said that the student, forgive me, not students. You were a student, but the players will actually initiate some of the Bible studies, and then
Right.
if they have a chaplain, they'll have the worship or the mass or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. So, I mean, are these guys working other positions, or is this their full-time job. That they are the chaplain for this team, like a military chaplain or something like
Yeah.
that.
Most of them are pastors of a church.
Okay.
So I know I got to know the pastor for the Jets really well.
Okay.
He was a former professional hockey player for 12 years.
Wow.
So he had that sports background.
Tough guy too.
Yeah, just like anything else, like had a calling. His story is kind of wild. Him and his family he'd retired. He had just bought a house in Texas. They were there for 2 months, and after 9/11, had a buddy they were going to start doing a startup church in Manhattan, and it's called Every Nation. Asked him to pick up and move his family after they'd been
2
there
months.
buying a house for 2 months.
Wow.
He had the calling, so he did it. Picked up his family, and moved. Instead of being in a nice house in Texas, they're in a shoebox. Four people in a shoebox in Manhattan.
Yeah. And probably paying the same amount too.
Yeah. Started this church together, and then started branching out. So he ended up branching out and doing one in New Jersey. I think that's kind of how he. I'm not sure if he got involved with the Jets before or after that, but now he has his own. Excuse me, his own church, and
That's awesome.
he does that as his job, and then his Jets thing is kind of just like the side gig.
That's really cool. So would they be available for like a counseling thing if a guy was having, like you said, problems with the spouse or problems with kids? I mean, it's chaplains in the sense that you can go there and have somebody to talk to and support you and all that.
Yep.
That's really great. And you think that, do you get a sense that like that's taken advantage of? I mean, do you feel like you
I
guys,
took advantage of it for
great.
sure.
Okay. Because it's a tough
I think the
world, right?
older I got and the more comfortable I got, I took advantage of all my resources. And it was whether it was at the facility or text or at his church after on Sunday, I had no problem talking to him if I needed any help.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool. What else we got, bro?
Well, I have to dive back in it because I love the story, and I think everybody else would get a kick out of it. But I asked you earlier if you ever met Tim Tebow,
Oh yeah,
and you said you did, and
I never met him.
you never met him.
I saw him
watched
from
his
saw him
mechanics.
from a distance. Yeah.
But we did mention, but we'll go on this one. So I did ask you. You got hit the hardest you ever, and it was what? It was in a
In practice, yeah. Didn't mean anything.
Didn't mean anything, but
Yeah.
he decided to lay you out. Huh?
Yep.
And
You said you're coming across the middle.
Yep. Quarterback led me into it.
Yeah. So across the middle, for those of you who aren't football fans, is Dan was running across the middle of the field, which is kind of the most dangerous spot if you're looking for the ball and there's guys just hanging around the middle of the field looking to lay something down
Yeah.
on you.
And it was my second year. It was a young hot shot, undrafted kid
Okay.
trying to make the team.
Trying to make the team, yeah.
did he make it?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
So it wasn't worth it at all. So he put his helmet right under mine, knocked my helmet off, mouthpiece out, bloody lip, can't breathe, knocked the wind out of me. Crowd's going crazy because they love
Yeah, the
gladiator sports and stuff like that. But it was practice, so it's like
Yeah,
I didn't get
yeah,
anything out of
Yeah.
it.
You just had the pain, and he didn't even make the team, so it was no good at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pain in the neck. Pain in the neck.
Well, I mean, if nobody else actually has anything out there, we can.
Well, I think it was awesome. So what we need to do is a year from now, once you kind of see where God's moving you and directing you, we need to have you back.
Yep.
Now, I don't know. They may never give you any time off again, right? Because
Oh, that's not true.
not true.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. Well, I got one more question that's popped up. So, the coaches and the players, all of the movies and all the stuff that I might read as a total like football layman, right? Is that the coaches work insane hours. And, I'm an Alabama football fan, so Nick Saban's famous for his work ethic, right? So do you feel like the coaches work more or the players work
Well,
more?
physically players.
Sure, yeah.
Everything else, coach. Which is why I don't want to get into it at all. I mean,
It's brutal, isn't it?
well, they just don't go home.
Right.
I mean,
just live there.
they're there before we are, and they're there after we are too. I mean, I know some coaches that just they've got couches in their office because they don't go home. I mean, they just sleep there, and I mean, in every coach has like an assistant too, and those guys get, which everybody's got to start. They got to start there and work their way up. I mean, those guys, you'll see them at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then they haven't had an ounce of sleep, and it's just like that's just miserable.
I'd
Like,
heard
it-
Joe Gibbs, and the only reason I know this is he actually had a bed in his office that
yeah,
he would just
every
sleep.
coach has got a couch. They just
Crash.
if it gets to the point where they're grinding through and there's no point in going home for 2 hours, so they just sleep in that office.
So were you one of them players that were first in, last out?
No.
Don't blame me there.
No,
Don't
no,
blame
no,
me there.
no.
We know
I
you
wasn't.
blame me
I,
there.
was,
I would not be the first in.
I wasn't going to be there any longer than I needed to.
Yeah,
be.
sure.
Like,
I hear you. You do what you got to do, right? Go
Yeah.
home. All right, so yeah, so we got to get you back here. We got another question pop in.
Yeah, we did.
All right, we'll do one more, and we'll start to wrap it up. But thank you guys for all your participation tonight. All right, so when people are criticizing NFL players and calling them quote bad, do you think it's gone? Where'd it go? Do you
I think
think?
it's fair to compare them to each other.
Yeah,
Yeah. So basically, and I'll read it one more time because it did pop away. When people are criticizing NFL players and calling them bad, do you think it's fair to the players to compare them to each other? So, make sense?
yeah, that makes sense.
For
So-
the players to compare each other, or
Yeah.
for
the fan, the casual fan, I think was the point. Like we're saying, like, oh, that guy, look at.
I don't think it's fair that
Okay.
Oh yeah, gotcha. So there needed to be a comma.
Okay. So all right, we got the gist of the question then.
Yeah. So I think it is. Is it fair to the players to be compared to other players by the fans? That's the way I look at it.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean,
It's job evaluation,
well,
right?
right. Everybody. I have no problem being compared to
What were
Travis
you-
Kelsey. I mean, it's not going to be a good comparison, but
What were you
but
going?
we play
to
the same
say?
position. It's the same thing. We both work at the same company, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he just does it better than I do. So
Yeah.
it's a fair comparison.
That's interesting.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
good
it's like everybody has an evaluation, and
Yeah.
we're gonna.
I don't like any pastor that's better than me, though.
Right. I'm not saying that I enjoy being
Enjoy it,
yeah,
right.
but it's true. I mean, maybe he may get more opportunities than I do,
Sure,
but
sure.
you know, I don't think I don't think I don't think it's not fair to compare players to players. I mean, it's an evaluation process.
Well, everybody, this has been a great evening, and if you have anything else before we roll out, I'm going to give away something. I've got it up over here. So in the meantime, if something comes to mind, don't hesitate to throw it out in chat. But I want to thank Dan Brown for coming on here, and
And we'll have you back, brother.
Yeah,
yeah,
appreciate it.
most
It's
definitely
been,
wanna
been
have
a lot
you.
of fun.
Good.
and like I
glad.
said, I'm still ironing out everything, so hopefully it'll be better. But I'm going.
But yeah, I'm seriously interested in where God's gonna lead through all of this, because it's encouraging that some of the guys we're watching on TV have a foundation
Yeah.
that we can connect with.
I'm just as interested
He's
as you
just
are.
as curious.
It'll be an interesting year for
Yeah,
you,
talk
right,
about
brother?
that waiting game that we've been playing. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
all
in the
right, so-
waiting, so I feel like I told my dad, I was like, I feel like I've been waiting for a while. You know,
All right, so Dan, I won't put a challenge out there. So I'll even go so far as 6 months. Let's.
He doesn't know, dude.
Huh?
He
Was
doesn't
it-
know where
was
he's
it
going to land in
later?
6 months.
No. I'm
November-
saying though,
November?
I'd be curious. 6 months to a year, I'd love to have you back. And heck, if something sooner happens and you really want to just come on and hey, don't hesitate to give us a
Yeah,
call.
here's what God did in my life. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But
Yeah.
November, he's probably going to be busy.
That's true.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
It'd be nice.
That's right.
So whenever you get a chance after all the good things happen,
If I'm
we'd
not
love to
busy
have
by
you.
November, you and I might be having a different conversation.
I'll make you a chaplain,
yeah,
right?
this is more so like what's going on. Maybe you can get some answers for me.
You got a connection over
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's all about who you know.
That's what I hear. So say a joke for me, all right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, no, it's been awesome, brother. It's
thank
good to
you
have
for
you here. We'll be praying
That's
for
true.
you.
Well,
Yep.
this guy, I'm not sure if this is he mentions youth ministry through sports. That's something that you could
Ah.
consider if you ever feel like that's a calling.
Yeah.
Youth ministry through sports.
That's a good point.
Yes.
But hey, so I want to add one other.
You know. But while he's setting that up, thank you for being here, brother.
Yeah,
It's been
thank
fun.
you for having me. It's been
Yeah,
bonus.
it's been good. And I serious want
And
to.
I'm honored to be the first guest.
Yes,
I really-
well, and you will always be the first
Yeah.
guest. And we were teasing him earlier. We gave him some swag. You want to pull out your hat? You
Yeah.
got it, goes. Tim and Mallory hooked him up with a hat, and we said, so when we're a podcast that has 1 million viewers, because of course that's our goal, right? I mean, anything less than 1 million would be failure, right? Of course. So we're gonna pull out his hat, and he can be the first one to have swag
Yep.
from our podcast.
And I got a notebook.
A
to
notebook
write down
and
on
everything.
on my
Well, what we're
question.
gonna do right now is we're gonna give out a notebook, and we always have a little thing that anybody that comments in the comment section will kind of be thrown in this drawing. So we're gonna pull this up and just see what happens. And
So some lucky winner is going to walk away with this right here, this cool looking journal that we just gave to Dan. So you will
All right,
have the
here
same one
we
that Dan
go.
has. And here it spins. There it goes. There it goes. Where it ends, no one knows. And it's looking at yes, Miss Vicky pulled it off.
yes, Vicky. So you are a proud owner of a Beyond the Sermon journal. We actually know you, Vicky. So you're more welcome to pick one up at the office at
That's
church.
right. And her son's a big baseball player, so there's a
So,
connection there.
Maybe maybe get him on there.
There you go. Have good talk about his baseball. But again, awesome night. Thanks for having me, brother. It's great.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see what God's going to do in your life. Thanks for participating. Thanks for being the first guest. Thanks for everybody who jumped in and participated with us. We will see you next week. God bless. I pray that He will guide you and direct you this week, and that your waiting will not be in vain, because He's a sovereign God. And that whatever you're working through right now, whatever answers you're waiting for, that He is at work in your life, and you know that He is in love with you. So that's the message, and God bless. We will see you next week. You want us to close in prayer? We can do it. All right, let's pray. Dear God, we thank you. We thank you for this evening. We thank you for everyone who participated. We thank you for the time we were able to spend together. I thank you for my brother Dan as he looks to the next phase of life, and we just pray that you will guide him as he's in the waiting. We pray that you'll just do great things for him, as we know that you will. We thank you for his witness tonight and his witness to others as he lives out his faith in just an incredible place, an incredible job. Lord, we do pray for everyone who's on this tonight or who will catch up with it later in the week, who feels like they're in a spot where they're waiting for you to work and they're waiting for your answers. We just lift them up, and whatever their circumstance may be, whatever the situation may be, that they'll just have that peace that passes all understanding that you promise for those who seek you. So be with us in the waiting, work for us, to us, through us in the waiting, and just guide us and direct us. We love you, Lord, and we praise your name that you love us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. God bless, friends.